Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to the program. Now, the Citizens Coalition for Change activist Moreblessing Ali went missing on the 24th of May. On Saturday, her dismembered body was found to the shock and dismay of all Zimbabwean people. The circumstances surrounding her disappearance and subsequent death is viewed by opposition supporters as another example of the brutal manner in which dissenting voices are silenced in Zimbabwe. But the country's police services, or the Zimbabwe Republic Police, have denied that her death has anything to do with politics. In a statement, the ZRP said that Moreblessing Ali was abducted by a former boyfriend, and her death had nothing to do with politics and more to do with her former boyfriend. Now, let's get a sense of how this incident has been viewed in that country. And let me welcome my guest, Crisis in Zimbabwe Executive Director Peter Mutasa. Mr. Mutasa, good evening to you and welcome. Hello, Peter, are you there? Okay, we seem to be having a problem. Oh, there he is. Hi, Peter, how are you? Hi, Peter, can you hear me? All right. I don't know. For some reason, we see Peter, but he is not able to hear us, and we're just going to find out if we can sort that out and see how we are able to fix that line. It looks like he was muted, and we'll see if he's able to unmute himself and speak to us. We are hoping to get some sort of idea regarding the incident and how the incident has been viewed by people in Zimbabwe. We're going to try again and see if Peter is able to. Can we get Peter back again, uh, Sadiq? Are we able to get Peter back? There we go. Peter, yes, I'm going to try and see if you're able to hear me.
Yes, I can hear you now.
Much better. Peter, because of the very, very difficult circumstances we find ourselves in Zimbabwe, I would like to find out how are the normal Zimbabwean population taking the news of Moreblessing Ali's death. I believe she was found on Saturday in a well and her body was dismembered. How have people responded to the news of this discovery?
Many people are shocked. It was a gruesome murder that we have never witnessed before for a long time. Yes, ZANU-PF has committed gruesome murders before in the name of politics, but we never thought that they would go this far of dismembering the whole body, cutting it into pieces, and throwing it into into a pit for so many days. The family was suffering. They were failing to understand where the mother is. So people are shocked. People are angry. People are very much seeking for answers. Unfortunately, we can't get the answers that we need at the moment. But definitely the whole nation is gripped in a dark cloud and people are very angry.
Mm-hmm. Peter, a lot of people outside Zimbabwe, I think the word I'm looking for is they underestimate the brutality of the regime or the brutality that Zimbabweans have to contend with, just to be able to have a different political view, for example, one that is different to the ruling party. I think if you could explain to our viewers and our listeners just how terrible or how precarious it is for people who dare to oppose the government in Zimbabwe.
So we are dealing with a regime that has always been brutal. If you follow the history of Zimbabwe soon after independence, in 1983 to 1987, over 20,000 people from Matabeleland and Midlands were killed in the most and brutal manner. Many were put in a hut and burnt alive, asked to sing while many were asked to dig their own graves, mass graves, and they were all thrown in the graves and shot at close range. Pregnant women were ripped open, and their fetuses, their children that had not been born, were taken off, and they were left there dying slowly. And many were asked to come and watch whilst their sisters are being raped, watch out whilst their mothers are being raped and shot after that. So we have been witnessing a culture of violence since the early years of independence. But if you go further, all these years, anyone who had tried to raise dissent from the 90s up to 2008 were met with brutality. In
Right.
2008, people were
Mm.
also killed. MDs were brutally, they skin you alive. Gaso has been vices and the police. So unlike the Mugabe regime, where there was some form of some civilian government, we are now under a military rule, a military dictatorship. I think the international community has to accept and to acknowledge that quickly. So where you are under a military rule, there is no constitution, there are no constitutional rights, no right to freedom of expression, no freedom of association. We are under a martial law that has not been declared, a de facto martial law. So for us in the trade unions and civic society, when I was leading the federation, when we were demanding better working rights, they would send letters with bullets to our children, to our families, threatening them. They would send letters threatening to rape our daughters. They would come to my house, destroy all the window panes, destroy all the doors, and then abduct my nephew, a 19-year-old boy, a very young old boy, take him away in the forest and torture him the whole night. He couldn't walk, he couldn't sit, he couldn't do anything. He was left for dead. And this has not just only happened to me, it has happened to journalists. Dudu Matutu's nephew was also tortured in the similar way. Those who are speaking truth to power, general unionist students, movement, churches, church leaders, they are all brutalized and persecuted. The courts are no longer dispensing justice. Instead of getting justice in the court, we are getting persecution. The women's organizations are not spared. As you know about the MDC trio, who were also abducted, sexual harassed for 2-3 days. Even medical doctors, when they went on strike, Peter Magombe was also brutalized. So we are under a cloud of fear in the whole country. We are imprisoned in fear. Many people
Yes.
are able to see, they fear, they are intimidated, but still say, no, that's living a day at a time and God takes care for us. I'm not sure if they will leave me to live. I'm not sure if they leave me to next week. Even my family is in danger. There must be some who should continue to speak. So it out, we are in trouble. Why we are making a call to the community, that we are making this early warning call because we know from now to 2023 it will be disastrous. We are going to see many bags, and we need the international community to intervene now, make sure that protect.
Okay. All right, Peter. Peter, I can still hear you. I can still see you. We seem to be losing the last few sentences of your answer, but I think we've heard that quite clearly. You are appealing to the international community in the run up to the elections. Now, my final question to you would be: with the elections that are just less than a year away, or at least a year, the elections are in 2023, and the intimidation and the violence that we've seen already. What sort of interventions do you think would be the most effective? We have a SADC troika in the region that is supposedly active, and yet they don't do anything. We have countries in the region who do not want to accept Zimbabweans. that want to come over and seek refuge from the economic and political hardships that they face. But just very quickly, what do you think the response? What kind of response you think at this stage will be the most effective, particularly as we are, as you say, in an election year, and already the violence has ramped up?
It is failing in all regards,
Mm.
social and economical. So as we are right now, we've got people who need. So the first thing we're calling for assistance. Drugs, the
Right.
equipment that's dying is we can't even go to the hospitals. There's nothing, and we can't afford it. The economy is imploding. Many people are working for nothing, and as a result, we have got a lot of vulnerability. So the first thing that we are calling humanitarian aid in all its facets. The region that if they don't have country implodes, we have nowhere to go. That to Botswana, and no one time. And the regional governments are allowing the despotic regime and the
Mm.
dictatorship to flourish. So those seek refuge should law to seek refuge from harm. The aspect is that SARS got and was there in 20 to observe a lot of things that the post partisan, that the media, there was no freedom, the partisan, the state media, that trading used to intimidate voters and the institution of the Democratic Commission performing a constitutional policies were made by the observer mission. The same conclusions were European Union.
Okay. All right, Peter. Peter. I think the line.
Apart from the climate recommendation, so what we need, an election observer mission, we need building a long-term program that comes in, ensure the government stops brutalizing, and we constitution that we all agreed to, and we implement the roadmap, the gaps that were some institutions respected, either SADC, AU, or UN. Then we move together for a long time, up from now up to the election period, and then after post-election, because we don't think the regime will surrender power even if it lose with a wide.
Right. Peter Mutasa, I think the line has gotten progressively worse, and I'm really struggling to hear you there. But I'd like to thank you very much for your time, and I think we got the gist of what you were saying, and of course, a very, very, very scary time right now in Zimbabwe. You allude to the fact that the elections is not just the silver bullet. Even after the elections, there's going to be some sort of work that's going to be needed if we find ourselves in a situation where the incumbent loses. But thank you very much for your time. I'd like to laud the work that you're doing in conscientizing the world about the problems in the country, and of course, please accept our condolences for the passing of Moreblessing Ali. Okay. No, I think Peter, he was not able to. Maybe he could hear me, but the line was just getting progressively worse. But thank you very much, Peter. I really appreciate, and of course, we will be keeping tabs on that situation. Zimbabwe is an election year, And of course, that brings us to the end of our Africa segment. When we come back, we begin our Islamic finance segment. And of course, Mufti Ismail Ibrahim Desai is our guest. Stay tuned.